Hello, everyone. This is Katrina VanHuss with Turnkey, and with me today I also have Lindsay Razzaz with Personify/Small World Labs. So welcome. We're glad you're here. We are going to start off today by you telling me if you can hear me. If somebody could chat me or send me a question to let me know that you guys can hear me, that would be fantastic. Oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. All right, so we're going to jump right in. As we go along today, if you have questions, please go ahead and ask them. I like this group. You're all very interactive. I have several people who can hear me. Thank you. As you have questions, go ahead and ask them in real time. I may address them immediately, or if I know that we're going to address the topic later in the slide deck, I'll save it for then. But regardless, either during or after the presentation, either me or Lindsay will get back to you. I also want to note that on June 16th, we'll be having our next webinar for Turnkey Talks, and that it will be with Carolyn Edrington from the Melanoma Research Foundation. And Carolyn will go through the specifics of how she grew her walk and the iterations that it went through on the way from when we met them 400,000 to 1.7 million now. And she tells a great story, so I hope that you'll join us. Hang on just a second. All right, here's who you're talking to today. I'm Katrina on the left, Lindsay's on the right. And Turnkey, to give you a little bit about us, is a recognition company and a fundraising strategy company. It was interesting. I was having a talk with my COO today, and he said, you know, recognition seems so prominent in everything that we do, but we're really a holistic strategy company. And I said, well, Steve, that's because peer-to-peer fundraising is about people, and people are about recognition. So it's all mixed in there together. So that was sort of an interesting conversation to encapsulate who we are. Lindsay represents Small World Labs, who was recently acquired by Personify. And Lindsay, if you could take just a minute and explain what Small World Labs is and does.
Great, yeah. So Personify has an association management system, so a really robust platform for managing members. And then with the Small World Labs edition, we provide online communities, which are private social collaboration spaces for your organization and its members. So I'm not sure how familiar this whole audience is with online communities. I'll give a little overview here. So, you know, whereas with Facebook, everyone and even their pets nowadays has an account, and you have to basically pay for views. And Twitter, anyone in the universe can see anything you post. Online communities can be as public or as private as you want. They can be integrated seamlessly with your website, and they offer just about any type of collaboration you can dream up. So forums, blogs, interactive resource libraries, mentor matching, events, badging, private collaboration groups, you name it. So they are incredibly configurable, and Personify has clients across the globe really using these communities in incredibly different ways.
And, you know, Lindsay, I was thinking about it from my perspective at Turnkey. Turnkey's always looking for a new way to get a set of eyeballs on a message in order to elicit a behavior. And for us, the online community represents that. It is an opportunity and a really, really good one that gives us the chance to put people in motion for reasons that you will understand as we go along here. So about 2 years ago, I had a conversation with someone over at Small World Labs, Michael, I think it was, and we were talking about the psychology that Turnkey brings to the market. You know, we delve deeply into fundraisers, peer-to-peer fundraisers, and what mobilizes them or what keeps them from mobilizing. And we had a conversation that emanated in a call or culminated in a call from Lindsay about a month ago that said, hey, you know that conversation you had a couple of years ago, we're doing it on the platform. And that's pretty exciting because I can say that online communities in and of themselves are cutting edge, and using this strategy that we're going to teach you today is even more cutting edge. So I think that you will take away something you can use in a lot of different areas, but it's fascinating to see what Lindsay and Small World Labs has done in their community. So, Lindsay, what do your clients tell you keeps them up at night?
Well, every year, a significant number of people join a peer-to-peer event but don't fundraise at all. So we are all here to talk about $0 fundraisers. So for this presentation, we were able to snap a photo of one of these mystifying $0 participants. Wait for it. Yep, that's me, with an extra splash of cuteness, just so you guys don't boo me off the call. I saw we actually have Komen, who's someone from Komen listening in, and actually I was a participant with my family in a 2013 Race for the Cure in honor of my husband's grandma, who was a breast cancer survivor. So we each paid our $40 registration fee, which we assumed will go to cancer research, and we looked forward to honoring her memory by walking. And we find that most of these $0 fundraisers are not that different from us, from you and me. They're people who are likely asked by a friend, a family member, or a colleague to participate in the event, but they didn't personally join with the intention of raising funds or activating a peer network or anything like that other than donating the registration fee. So they may or may not have a strong personal connection to the cause, but clearly they're not ready to be fundraisers. So what's the big deal? The big deal is their incredible fundraising potential. So they are already sympathetic to your cause, they're already in your database, and they're already at your event. They're in your house. However, these people are costing our organizations money, unfortunately. So depending on who you ask, up to 25% of a nonprofit P2P budget goes to participant acquisition. And as you're seeing right now, yeah, according to Blackbaud's 2015 benchmark, 68% of walkers didn't raise a dime for your cause. So that is 7 out of 10 of all of your participants. So their net financial impact is, negative. They fail to activate their peer network, and typically they don't re-register for subsequent events. So as a group, they're constituting a huge missed current year and donor lifetime revenue opportunity.
And to compound it, the ones that you actually activate to fundraising are on average raising $65 each. This from a Blackbaud benchmark study. So that's a pretty challenging picture that that Lindsay and I are painting. One of the things Lindsay asked me to do, which I found interesting, was to figure out, so what is really the cost of a $0 fundraiser? And I think because my brain is built in the other direction to be, glass half full, I had to do it in the other direction. And think about, well, what, exactly, so, what if we could activate 5% of the $0 fundraisers? What would that mean to the people on this call? And to use rough numbers and industry statistics, I used 5% because we are going to show you an example in a few minutes of a $0 fundraiser campaign using the technique that we're teaching today. And in that campaign, we were able to activate 5% of the zeros using a different method from the online community, but an analogous method to the one that we're showing you today. So if we were able to mobilize 5% of zeros and we had an event or a series with 1,000 participants, that would yield $3,250 more income with no more expense. For 10,000, you add a zero. For 100,000 participants, then you're adding $325,000 to your bottom line by activating just 5%, which is pretty significant money. So we're going to move now into the psychology of the thing. We consider, as I said, Small World Labs installation really helpful in helping Turnkey achieve its one goal, because really at Turnkey we're only after one thing for all our clients for any service that we deliver, and that one thing is what we call the participant intrinsic label. An intrinsic label is basically, how do I see myself? You can have as a person many different labels, but to be specific in regard to your nonprofit, let's say my local Buddy Walk You know, I see myself as a participant in a fundraiser in my local buddy walk. I see myself as a parent of someone with Down syndrome. I see myself as a fundraiser. However, in regard to Parkinson's, I don't see myself that way, in spite of the fact that my husband's father died of complications from Parkinson's. So the intrinsic label is how I perceive myself. Our job is to change that. And to show you how we do it, we first have to explore how it's built, and then we can understand how we can impact someone's intrinsic label. And we're going to start in the African savannah. Now, I was telling Lindsay before the call, if you join Turnkey for 3 or 4 calls, you will see these images and hear this story again and again. And the reason is this part doesn't change. You know, humans are humans. They make decisions in the same ways over a long period of time in the country, in the city, whether they're black, whether they're white, whether they're male or female for the most part. So you'll hear this story again. So we're going to start in the African savannah. And what we know is that people's behaviors are driven by their DNA. And their DNA is passed along based on their behaviors. So the easy one, the one that everyone knows about, is that people want to have sex because that passes along their DNA. But there are other human attributes of behavior that work the same way, and one of them is recognition. You know, in order to survive, to be able to pass along your DNA, you had to be in a group. If you were a solitary person in this kind of environment, you would not survive. So the recognition of your group meant that they would share resources and protection with you, and that made your DNA pass along. So what that means is that as opposed to the person who desires recognition and lots of it, looking kind of like a schmuck, really they're actually highly evolved. That particular part of their nature is working really, really well, and it is a DNA-derived attribute seeking recognition. Now, this is all theory until MRI scanners came out. MRI scanners let us test things like this, putting somebody in there and giving them their favorite food. We could see what neural pathways lit up. So they did that, and then they put somebody in there and they tried things like this. Lindsay, you're a great mom. And they watched her brain. Yeah, and she lit right up. There you go. The neural pathways light up when she gets compliments like that, the same as if she's eating her favorite food. The physiological impact is the same. Recognition feels as good as eating your favorite food. So now we're going to move into that intrinsic label and how we can impact it, knowing what we know about recognition, and that it is powerful, it's real as a DNA-derived attribute, and that's what we're trying to use in order to impact someone's intrinsic label. All right, so how do we do that? We go to our toolbox, or that's the way we look at it at Turnkey. What's in our toolbox that we can use to influence behavior? And I want to connect one dot here that I think I may not. We're talking about influencing behavior because people look at behavior and they decide what the person's attitude is. And it's sort of interesting. If I saw Lindsay being a good mom, I would say in my head, wow, that Lindsay, she's a good mom. I would infer her attitude. I would infer that she loved her child. Likewise, if I saw myself engaged in a behavior, I would make similar inferences about myself. And that's how the human brain works. We'll dig into that a little bit.
Right, exactly,
So
Katrina. And I want to just chime in there, too, because behaviors are what gain you that public recognition. So it's really with the behavior that sets off this chain where you behave in a certain way, you develop a label for yourself, people recognize you for it, and then in the online community space, we call intrinsic labels a social identity. So how you're recognized, how you identify socially becomes part of this equation as well.
Yes, thank you. That well said. So the first tool that we're going to go to for this is consistency bias. So people have the psychological need for their actions to be consistent with their attitudes. So you've heard the term cognitive dissonance. What that means is that when someone has inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, inconsistent with their current behavior. So if I see myself as a good mom and yet I'm not treating my children well, I experience discomfort, and that discomfort is called cognitive dissonance. People badly, badly want their behaviors to be consistent over time. So here's a great example of that. The Ice Bucket Challenge had people exhibit a behavior that created and then reinforced an intrinsic label. The reason they dumped ice water on their heads had nothing to do with ALS, and this is really important. It had nothing to do with ALS for the most part. The incidence of Lou Gehrig's disease in the general population is small. They were doing this because it was fun, because they got to show off. But the behavior that they exhibited then created a connection with ALS.
Yeah, exactly, Katrina. So everyone, this is our $115 million example of this psychology in action. And this example is powerful not only in the number of people who participated, so yes, it was a brilliant social media campaign, but more importantly in the huge number of first-time donors to the ALS Foundation. So think about it. People who posted this video got public recognition that aligned them with the cause. If they hadn't given money afterwards, nobody would have been the wiser. But that's when the consistency bias that you just spoke about kicks in. So it would have been psychologically uncomfortable not to follow through, to not be the person you're publicly recognized as being. So before you know it, bam, you've developed an intrinsic label as somebody fighting Lou Gehrig's, and then you follow through by donating. So audience members, did you do the Ice Bucket Challenge? Feel free to chime in.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you donate? Of course you did. Or right now you're sitting in your seat feeling guilty over a year later.
I love it. And you know, Lindsay, the other part of the consistency bias didn't actually hit the news reports, and that was, you know, the Ice Bucket Challenge happened in a part of the year that was immediately followed by the ALS walk environment. And you know, if our theory holds true, then there would have been literally millions and millions and millions of people in the general population who had either exhibited a behavior that connected them to ALS emotionally and mentally, or they had donated, which would do the same thing. If that were true, wouldn't that have an impact on their walk environment that happened right after that? Wouldn't all those people out there, you know, when people were asked to walk or to donate in the walk environment, wouldn't they have reacted? And the answer is yes, they did react. And this goes pretty much unreported. The ALS Walk Series was up 37% in income, 48% in participation, with no more budget applied to it than had been previously planned. So this is the pressure of cognitive dissonance in the general population. They had established a connection, and many of them acted on it. And to Lindsay's point, the other people felt bad about not acting on it. So we're going to move into recognition a little more deeply, knowing that, you know, at Turnkey we're looking for ways to apply recognition. I'm going to hit 3 of the biggies today. Recognition can manifest in many, many different ways. I'm showing 3, but I would include emails. I would include any way that you personally can be identified by another entity is recognition. And we're always looking for new ways to deliver it, which was the impetus of our chat with Small World Labs. The first kind of recognition is human-delivered, represented by the graphic on the left, and that's face-to-face, person-to-person. Lindsay, you're a good mom. That's the kind of recognition that is incredibly powerful. Another powerful form of recognition is testifying, to advocate, to take the mic, so to speak. And that is often shown up or shows up as a leadership volunteer effort. It can also show up online when let's say, for example, I'm on Facebook and I make a political post. That's leadership, and I am recognized for it, sometimes in incredibly negative ways, but that's okay. This type of leadership, you know, overt leadership where you're stating your opinion, you're saying something out loud that other people can see and read, is arguably the most powerful form of recognition, because once you say, I believe in whatever it is, you are likely to act like you believe. And then not the last, but another very popular form of recognition has to do with recognition gifts. And this is where Turnkey entered the market 28 years ago. I can't believe it. Recognition gifts has a couple of defining attributes. Recognition gift programs have a couple of defining attributes that make this practice different from the others. And the attributes are, number one, it's easily executable, and number two, it's measurable. So things like, holding the mic and advocating or personal recognition, hard to execute, hard to measure. Recognition gift programs, however, easy to execute, easy to measure. So that's the data we're going to use today to make the point.
Yeah, and that's exactly where, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that's exactly where online communities come in, and that's exactly why we were so fascinated with this conversation, is because online communities actually can make being an advocate or having in-person peer-to-peer recognition be a measurable thing. So that's why we are so excited about this.
Yes, you and I haven't had this conversation, but we went through and we categorized all the different kinds of recognition that could be applied, and then we ranked them by executability and measurability. And the online platform is a huge opportunity because you can execute and because you can measure. It's very, very exciting. So now we're going to translate all this psychology into strategy.
So over the years, we've seen Turnkey change the way that we talk about peer-to-peer fundraising. They've worked with some of the nation's largest peer-to-peer programs, JDRF, American Cancer, American Diabetes, Arthritis, Alzheimer's Association, and more. Many of those are Personify clients as well. Turnkey has married analytics and psychology to help us understand and measure, like Katrina just said, the fundraiser's response to this type of recognition. So we're really excited to use this strategy on our platform, and Katrina's going to talk about some of the first programs that they've run, the strategy behind them, and the results that they've gained. So keep in mind, these strategies that Katrina is going to go over now is the same strategy that drives the pilot program that I'm going to unveil to you today in the online community space.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, this is a study, and actually a program that we ran. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm off onto a different slide. This is a slide that will help you understand the financial value of fundraiser recognition, or I could easily have entitled this slide, the financial value of a strong intrinsic label. The light green column on the left these are statistics that came out of a benchmark study we completed a few months ago. It's over 1.5 million participants. We used the data sets that we had in-house from clients, and we culled down to 1.5 million so that we had a really great data set that was very clean. So this is strong data that you're looking at. So what you see on the left is the average income of a recognition gift seeker. And that's kind of awkward language, but what that means is that this is a person who within a recognition program that was structured at a nonprofit client earned and wanted their recognition gift, meaning they actively said, yes, I would like that gift. Now, it is important to note that in Turnkey's best practices, we don't offer gifts that have enough value in and of themselves for the participant to simply want the gift. That's one of our best practices, is that we don't advocate putting in gifts that have enough value that a redemption would happen simply to get the gift. If the person took this gift, it means they have a strong intrinsic label. Compare that person at almost $1,100 to the average industry participant at about $65, or even the even better average online fundraiser at $200. So recognition and a strong intrinsic label means money. So now we're going to walk into a, this is a program that we ran for leukemia and lymphoma Light the Night, and what we were trying to impact were $0 fundraisers. So we're to the heart of the matter here. what we know is that we as humans, as a species, we like to show off and tell others who we are. This person clearly is demonstrating to anyone who sees this laptop that he or she is a nurse. Back at the Turnkey Ranch, we're always looking for ways to get someone to exhibit a behavior so that they can see themselves that they did it, which can change their intrinsic label. Because if they see themselves doing it, they will infer that their attitude, that their intrinsic label must be commensurate with their behavior. So we thought, I bet we can get people to exhibit a behavior if we give them the chance to show off. So that's what we did. This email was deployed to tens of thousands within the leukemia and lymphoma audience. This was the first time we did this, and we did it in a very controlled way. The data is perfect, and the data set is huge. Our offer was to $0 fundraisers. We classified these people as zeros if they had not, within 2 weeks after registering, fundraised or self-donated. To that group, we said this in summary. Hey, Betsy, you're fantastic because you registered. Yay. You know, we're going to ignore the fact that you've done nothing. Thank you very much. Betsy, please take this decal as our thank you gift and as a way to tell the world more about the good person that you are. So that was the offer. What we asked them to do was fill out a little online form to ask for the survey. Then we mailed it to them. We asked them to use or to ask for the decal, and then we mailed them the decal and asked them to use it, which presumably they did. So once we did that, we compared the group of people who were offered and asked for that decal with the group of people who was everybody else, meaning we compared their results, fundraising results, to the people who were never offered the decal either because they had already started fundraising or who were offered the decal but didn't want it. And this is what happened. The zero who took and used the decal, raised $235 on average. The people who were in the general population, which keep in mind included people who were already fundraising, worked at average 174. So it was a huge success. It mobilized about 5% of the audience, which we took as
and if you think about this, Katrina, and audience, I mean, this is a really intuitive thing, and it's already being used a lot in political campaigns. I mean, any campaign with a significant budget, if you demonstrate your support for that candidate in any little way, they're going to jump on that first opportunity to send you a bumper sticker, right? Because they know as soon as that bumper sticker is on your car, as soon as that sign's in your yard, you're in for the long haul. You're going to send donations. You're going to watch the speeches. You're going to promote it on social media because you have aligned yourself socially with their campaign. So it's awesome that Turnkey is bringing this to the nonprofit hemisphere as well.
And you know, there's just so much opportunity, which is what we see in the online community. I'm going to give you guys one more example, but before I do that, I wanted to ask or answer one question. Chris asked, how do you know that a person is a recognition gift seeker? That is actually a great question. The way that Turnkey delivers recognition, in almost every case, we ask that they go through a redemption process in order to ask for the recognition. We do that for two reasons. Number one, it's another behavior that we're eliciting in order to reinforce their intrinsic label. Number two, it saves our clients money because we're not sending gifts to people who really don't care that much. And number three, it creates business intelligence of the type that you're seeing here. So great question. Another question, over what time period was the decal offered? How many donors were offered the decal? Actually, no donors were offered the decal, only peer-to-peer fundraisers. But, Megan Miller, that's a great question and a good thought, and I know where you're going because we are starting to do that with donors as well, with other clients. Chris, yes, this is data that we pick up after the campaign is over. And then the last question, did you send a gift to someone who was already fundraising? Depending on program. When the program that is shown on screen right now, we would send the decal when they were a zero. So, you know, these people were not fundraising yet. In other programs, we will send the gift. You know what, Nancy, thank you for the question. It's actually a more complex answer, and the answer is sometimes and maybe. I hate questions like that, you know, or answers like that. So, okay, I'm going to move on now. Next thing we're going to look at is both a blessing and a challenge. Email is hard, meaning it's hard to get people to open it, but it still performs very well for us. If we could get eyeballs on all the messages, which is sort of what the online community represents to us as the opportunity, we could do better work. So I do want to talk about right now email recognition, because that's a closer analogy to what Small World Labs is doing. We are delivering messages into inboxes. So keeping in mind that email recognition is just one way to recognize people, like a gift program, like calling someone on stage, like personal outreach, hey, you're a great mom. So we had a client who said, you know, maybe we would achieve the results that we've achieved simply by posting the offer. You know, maybe simply by making the information available as to the offer. And the offer in our world means if you will give us X behavior, we will recognize you with Y gift. The client said, well, maybe we would have gotten that anyway. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's just the information that's important, not the way that we deliver the offer. We felt strongly that that was not true, because the way that recognition emails are delivered is in response to someone's behavior, a very close analogy to what's happening or will be happening on the online platform. So when we deliver recognition messaging with that offer, we're responding to behavior like your current level of income, whether you have asked for a donation in a week, things like that. So we wanted to measure the fundraising performance of the people who opened the recognition emails versus the people who got the information in some other way, either by staff outreach, posting on the website, or other collateral. And so we said, you know, to be fair, people who are opening our emails are already more engaged. So let's weight it. Let's say, you know, client, what do you think? What do you think, you know, the already engaged aspect of email openers would account for in terms of fundraising difference? And the client said, well, I think that's going to be 50%. I think 50% more will come out of people who open emails. So anything above that, we're going to attribute to recognition messaging, the kind of messaging that equals recognition. So what was the actual difference? It was that. So the people who got the offer simply by getting the information fundraised on average $138. If, you know, 50% of openers' response was due to higher engagement, we would have seen about 268 or something like that. But instead, we saw a 300% difference between people who did not open the recognition emails and got the offer a different way, or people versus people who opened the recognition email. This is the closest analogy we feel to the power of an online community in eliciting behaviors to impact intrinsic label, and that's what will cause future positive behaviors. So, Lindsay, I turn it over to you. Show us this platform.
All right, fabulous. Okay, so you just shared the impact of changing the tone of a single email from request to recognition. However, no surprise here, we really struggle to get our folks to open our emails at all. So we're going to take a completely different approach with the online community. So like the slide is showing, the traditional method of communicating with participants does not work for $0 fundraisers. And that's because they're not even in a fundraising mindset, and so they just feel spammed. So think about the typical communications you get from an organization once you register for their event. You get weekly emails, at least, asking you to raise money. You get shiny, expensive-looking snail mail asking for you to fundraise. And then after the event, there's one more call for donations couched in a thank you email. And then there are just months of silence until next season when you have to start fielding these requests to fundraise again. So by definition, we know that $0 fundraisers do not respond to this traditional ask, thank, silence method. And really, that's the best case scenario. So at worst, they're sitting there, they're feeling spammed, and they're developing a negative association to your organization's brand, which is terrible because they are a champion. They love your cause. They're associated in some way. So what if, instead of sending this barrage of emails and asking them to do something that they're just plain not ready to do, you could literally take your underperformer and place them in a room full of your most inspiring and inspired supporters from across the country. And then you could just crowdsource their motivation. That's basically what we do with online communities. So instead of asking them to go out and raise money for you, you're asking them to do something so much simpler and so much more genuine from their perspective. You're just asking them to share. You're asking them to share a bit of yourself publicly. Open up to this community. You're asking your participants to share why they registered in the first place. So that's that behavior piece that we've been talking about, that public behavior. So what you're actually doing here, and what this graphic represents, is that you are cultivating a relationship with each participant that emphasizes personal recognition and social identity. And you're strengthening those intrinsic labels that brought them to you in the first place. So then once that identity is established and that allegiance is established, then that is the right time to provide the tools for them to go deeper and to become an advocate, to introduce their participant center or their fundraising pages, to ask them to donate, or to fundraise rather. And I want to be clear here. The problem with our typical communication method is not that email campaigns are bad, obviously. The issue with these email campaigns is that they're driven by a single marketing calendar that's blindly applied to all participants, whether they're ready to fundraise or not. Does that make sense to everybody? And the beauty of the online community here is that every single member of the community, every single registrant to your event gets a personal marketing calendar. So you know when they're going to be most receptive to that fundraising request, and then you can send it. And the beautiful thing is that this is all automated by logic that's built into our platform. So that's what gives you the flexibility and the bandwidth to support thousands upon thousands of unique calendars all at a single time.
You know, Lindsay, one thing you and I have not discussed before is that, you know, one of the things in Turnkey's work over the last few years that we've been experimenting with is how far or how hard do we make the behavior we're asking for. And what we've learned is that when we ask for really small behaviors and give small recognition, that works better than setting a huge goal. And I think you're demonstrating that. Sharing is easy. There's a little barrier to entry to share. and our research and our data indicates that, you know, if we drop the goal level on recognition, or as you've done, made sharing so easy, that's just like, so why wouldn't I? But then I've exhibited that behavior, and then my intrinsic label begins to change.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what we found? This works. The fact of the matter is that people respond best to this mix of touch types, to this relationship-based way of relating to and communicating with a cause or an organization. So online communities, as you just said, they lower the bar for participation. They bring it down to a human level. And they infuse our traditional series of fundraising requests, in this case, with more personal and dynamic opportunities to engage, to learn, to be recognized, to contribute, and ultimately to grow the relationship, plain and simple, with your organization and with your movement. So here's a real-life example. The Scottish Rite has been a client of ours for years. After they built an online community for their members to connect in, and the members started receiving notification emails from the community, their average open rates on marketing emails increased by nearly 37%. So to put that back in the terms of the strategy we're talking about here, their intrinsic label or their social identity grew stronger with online community, so that they became more receptive to everything relating to the organization, not just the community, but also to marketing requests for membership renewals, for donations.
You know, and that's an interesting concept, and what is so amazing is that you have data. You know, every time people are interacting on your platform, you're creating data that helps you understand their behavior. So you have an example you're going to show our audience of doing just that?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to get, it's easier for us to get too carried away here in strategy and psychology and, big numbers, but, when it comes down to it, like you said, this is a human process. These are humans that we're working with. So in all of our Personify communities, we build a welcome walkthrough that helps walk a member through setting up their account and claiming their space and encourages them to share for the first time. So in this community, the last step asks the new members to share why they participate. And let me just demonstrate the power of the set of events that this kicks off. You'll see here that this member just said simply, I participate because of my dear sweet mother and other family members. This is an Alzheimer's community. And I just responded with 2 words of welcome. I blurred out her name here just to keep it a little more private, but I just said welcome. And then you'll see, next slide, that next day she sent me a profile comment and she said, thank you, Lindsay, for welcoming me. You've really helped me continue to fight this battle come what may. She said, my start is a little slow, but that's okay. I'm not going to give up. Believe me when I tell you that Alzheimer's disease will be a thing of the past. And that was just,
Lindsay.
Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to make the comment. I'm sure some people are sitting in the audience going, that would be great if I could sit at my desk and answer these posts all day. Wouldn't that be fantastic? But I think what Lindsay and Personify and Small World Labs brings to the table is an automation of doing exactly that, which Lindsay will show you.
Yes, exactly. So I actually did respond to her, but we can automate this on our platform so that a day after a new person joins, there is a profile comment from one of the staff members or a volunteer that says, welcome, thanks for joining. We have quite a few tricks up our sleeves in that way. Makes it scalable.
Yes.
Okay, so we over here at Personify love data. Of course, everything we do is driven by data. And so one of my colleagues, Summer Huggins, did an ABC test with just welcoming new members. And so you'll see here the first group of people, new users in a community, she gave no welcome to. She just let them come in, do what they may, poke around a little bit. And in 2 weeks following their membership in the community, they had only 2 actions. That's what that y-axis is. They had only 2 actions. A simple hello garnered about the same results, just a couple actions. But when we said hello and gave them a couple ideas for ways to share in the community, they had 5 times 17 actions in the first 2 weeks of being a community member. So the power of hello, of recognition, of community is really powerful, and it doesn't have to be anything grandiose. And we saw that this trajectory continued through their whole life in the community.
Lindsay, my husband typically does the psychologist part of our turnkey sessions, but one of the studies that he tells us about, the summary is that it doesn't matter who recognizes you, whether you know them or not, the impact on you psychologically is the same. So, what Lindsay's demonstrating is that even recognition from a complete stranger or an automated platform works the same way.
They would never know it was automated. And we love them.
That's true. Yes.
The goodwill's there. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to speed up a little bit because I see that we are getting very close to the end. Hopefully you guys can stick around a little bit later. So I just want to show you, after that little exchange with this member, she generated 22 pages of community activity, including 123 forum posts, tons of resource downloads. She shared photos of her family members. She started welcoming other members. I mean, I could literally wallpaper the slide with her activity. And then you know what she posted the day after the event? She posted, don't forget to sign up for next year. We can all do it again. So that, my friends, is how champions are born. Within 2 months of her slow start, where she didn't quite know what to do, she had become a champion. And most importantly, she self-identifies now as a champion. Okay, so Personify customers, if you are not familiar with what you're seeing on the screen right now, then after this, call me as soon as it's over, and we're going to sign you up for some strategy support. Because this is really the bread and butter of online community. This is what community does. This graphic shows you how members connect with your organization at the very foundation where they're observing you, then they follow your organization. For our purposes, we're going to start at the endorsing level. So here, they're participants in your event. They've registered. By the time you get to contributing, they're maybe asking friends to support them here and there, family members. Owning, maybe they're a team captain. They have a strong social identity and confidence in the relationship between themselves and your organization. So maybe they're leading a team or manning a booth at a college fair or setting up a workplace fundraising event. And by the time you get to leading, these precious few leaders, volunteer leaders, they are powerful, they are loyal, and they're working for you year-round. They're shaping your strategy. They're basically your unpaid staff. So you can see this nice, healthy pyramid, but we're going to get real for just a second. All right, this is what many of our pyramids actually look like, folks. I mean, this is why we're on the call. See, you've got like the squatty pyramid with the Space Needle perched on top. Yeah, so we have huge breakage points between endorsing and contributing. Like we talked about earlier, we're all here today because we're losing 7 out of 10 of our members between endorsement and contribution. No bueno. Okay, so our whole strategy that we're talking about is meant to address this. The whole upshot, in sum, is that providing personal opportunities for behavior gains recognition, and then once they have that social identity, they are propelled up the pyramid, and they start to do the desires that you start to have the behaviors that you desire for them to have. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is a full-fledged pilot in using online community as an intervention with $0 fundraisers. This is really the bleeding edge of participant development strategy. The pilot has a pretty big name attached to it. It's the American Cancer Society, who, as I'm sure you're all aware, operates the largest fundraising event series in the world, Relay for Life. So the challenge that Relay for Life had initially, why they created this online community, was that there was a performance gap, a huge performance gap between their fundraising events across the country. So in order to correct this, they created the community, which is focused on sharing best practices and fundraising ideas and stories amongst participants, team captains, staff members, etc. So by its second year, so really early in the community's life, it had already produced awesome results. You see here that they started fundraising 87 days earlier, people who are participants in the community as opposed to people who had not joined the community. Also, people in the community were more confident in their ability to fundraise. So they set higher fundraising goals than people who are not members. And then they exceeded those goals that they set more often, the participants who are not in the community. They ended up raising 352% more on average if they were in the community than if they had not joined the community. So in this pilot, these are results of the community in general. In this pilot that I'm about to show you, we're leveraging this power of community to target an even harder to reach group. They're $0 fundraisers. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through the basic steps of how we are actually creating this pilot in the online community platform. The first step is that you want to push all participants into the community immediately. So whatever momentum drives a person to register, we're going to capitalize on that right away, because we just don't know how receptive, especially $0 fundraisers, will be to any type of subsequent communications that we have after registration. So that is step one, and you can see here our little welcome walkthrough.
Sorry.
Yeah, and Sarah,
Okay.
the community manager. Okay, so step 2 is we're providing a behavioral opportunity like we've talked about, just like the Ice Bucket Challenge. So in this pilot, we are asking them to share their story. So you can post a picture of your family member, talk about why you've joined. Very simple, intuitive, easy to use tool that creates a nice, Pinterest style layout. And then number 3, so once somebody posts their story, we have people on board, volunteers, staff, and then the community organically just responds to other members. So that's where that public recognition kicks in. At this point, once somebody has shared their personal cancer story and they've been recognized for that story by other members, we consider these $0 fundraisers activated. They're now primed to receive that fundraising request, those emails that tell them how to set up their pages and start fundraising, because now they've developed a social identity or an intrinsic label. Okay, so as Katrina was mentioning, everything in the online community is measurable. We have over 200 measurable actions, and we have all types of interactive reports, and you name it. Data is plentiful. What we also have is the ability to segment members based on their behaviors. So, once somebody posts their story, we put them in a shared story segment. And then we also integrate with our clients' databases. So in this example, once somebody's posted their story, our platform talks to their database, their CRM, and then their constituent record has a tag on it that lets them know and pull reports in their database that these people have shared their story and that they would be the next group who would receive a marketing email. So that, again, is how every single member gets their own marketing calendar. It's because the community talks to the database and the database sends the emails, etc. Let me know if you want any more information about that. It's a little complex if we're not looking at the community itself. Okay, and so at that point, like I said, they're receptive to communications. And now, instead of sending a generic email that says, thank you for registering, set up your fundraising page, you can say something that's a little bit more personal to them because you know a little bit more about them based on the segment that the community put them in after they shared. So you can say, thank you for sharing your story as a caregiver. Now, can you please help us raise funds for life-saving research by yada, yada, yada? And it's much more effective. All right, the last piece of this, of course, because as I said, we are completely data-driven over here, is that you measure the results. You measure, because our platform is talking to your database, you know, A, how many people out of your total number have shared their story, how compelling of a request that is for your members. You know, of those groups, how many of those people have responded to your marketing email, to the fundraising email. You know, of your fundraisers, how many have come back into the community that same year and continue to be active in the community, or who has moved from a participant to a team captain. You can watch the entire evolution of your participants over the years and see through their behaviors in the community exactly how they self-identify with different topics, with different types of activity, etc. So we are running very short on time. If we have any time for questions, let's go ahead and move into that.
All right, so let me, the first question is, what kind of database do we need? We currently use an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, so you don't have to integrate with the database. We have really robust integrations to Personify, of course. That's one of our most robust. Blackbaud, quite a bit of their software, Salesforce, IMIS. We have a ton of out-of-the-box integrations that are ready if your organization uses that. If you do not have a database, the platform generates results on its own. So you can pull a list of members who have, like I'm showing on the screen right now, people who left a forum post in the Paint Your World Purple. You can pull a list of those members, and then you could email them or send marketing campaign that way. You don't need it to integrate. That's just an extra tool.
Next question. How would you recommend the online community be built for non-race/walk participants, in parentheses, peer-to-peer organic, online campaigns, birthdays, weddings, special occasions, etc.?
Oh yeah, that's a fabulous question. So these online communities are incredibly configurable. We have clients across the globe who are advocacy organizations. We have the American Institute of Economic Researchers. We have attorneys. Gosh, you name it. We have caregiving, event communities, etc. So, you know, the collaboration tools remain the same. You know, if you want forums, if you want an event calendar, blog posts, collaboration groups, we can skin a community to fit, to integrate seamlessly into your website or to even be your website. So really, it's like social real estate that you own, that's designed by you, that the tone is set by you. You know, as many things as you can dream up, an online community can really become that in the collaboration space.
The next question is, what if you don't have the budget for this? And I'd like to answer that one. You know, I would encourage everyone, whether you think you have the budget or not, to go ahead and have the conversation so that you understand where you're pointed. It may be a matter of simply collecting budget information, but I would guess, Lindsay, that knowing where you're going technologically will impact decisions each and every day currently. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, you know, online community, based on what exactly you need for it to do, that'll set the price for installation. And we find that our online communities, because of the logic that's built into the platform, can automate a lot of things that are really otherwise burdensome for your staff to complete. So automating email campaigns, automating you know, application processing, automating things like that. So we find that in a lot of our organizations, the community actually allows staff to focus on, you know, more important and higher value pieces of the organization, and so you actually can reduce the number of staff, or not pay for that additional, you know, administrative position when the community automates a lot of that for you. So depending on, you know, your budget and your needs and what the community can do, that can be a bigger conversation.
All right, we had a few other questions that were about the specifics of the turnkey campaigns, but I am going to address those offline because they're really specific. If you have any other questions, we have about 2 minutes. Otherwise, we came in right at the wire, Lindsay. Good job.
Whew.
Yeah. So to reiterate again, you know, when we're looking at a peer-to-peer fundraising audience, what we know is that if we can get people to show us a behavior, to exhibit a behavior, and if that behavior looks like someone who's tied to your cause, regardless of the reason they exhibited it, then they will become more intrinsically aligned with you. Their intrinsic label will change. What the online community represents is an automated way to do that, and that's really powerful. So whether you are using it now or later, I think it will become part of every nonprofit's life.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, it really, I just want one parting thought here is that online communities are year-round, and it can be for a lifetime. So especially if you're an event organization where relationships tend to be on your event cycle and then drop off, and then maybe you pick them up or not. We've seen this be really powerful because people have the ability to continue to behave and to be attached to your organization and to grow with your organization year-round, year after year. So,
excellent. Very good. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Lindsay. That was fantastic. And hopefully we'll see you guys next month on Turnkey Talks. And Lindsay, I'll see you at conference at some point, I'm sure.
Sounds great, Katrina. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye now.